like, don't kid yourself. The way you fill out an MLS form is not what makes you good at your job. The way you use Canva is not what makes you good at your job. How well you design a business card or a website, or how well you host an open house, is not what makes you good at your job, because there's 1.9 million real estate agents in the country, and they're all doing exactly the same shit.
Welcome to a series of unfortunate real estate events, a podcast where we talk about real issues that come up from the time a property goes under contract to the time it actually closes, and what other real estate agents can learn from these experiences. This week, I'm joined by Matt Miale from the Miale Team at Keller Williams, and we're going to walk through a few closings that just didn't go to plan, and ultimately how they played out. Good morning, Matt. How are you?
I am spectacular.
That is always a
Good
good
as
thing.
can be, man.
That's a great way to start your day.
Yeah. Well, given all the answers that you could give to that question, why choose anything other than spectacular? It's just a word. You get to pick whichever word you want. You could say good, you could say fair, you could say okay,
I'm
or you
going to
could
steal
say
that from you.
great, or you could
I'm going
say,
to start saying spectacular.
yeah, spectacular is a good one. It's just like a lot of times, even when I'm not feeling spectacular, but I answer the question that way, starts moving me in the direction of spectacular.
It's a great mindset.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves, because I know, in Connecticut, you're pretty well known, but
I mean, anytime people say that, it's always sort of shocking to me too, because, yeah, at this point, you're not wrong. It does feel weird to be well known. It is a weird experience. I did not get into this business to become well known. I was, like a lot of people, just sort of looking for a path in life. And somewhere along the lines, I landed, around some people who knew a little bit about real estate. And they said, you should buy some real estate because it's a good way to build wealth. And in my late 20s, that sounded smart. So I thought, cool, I'll buy some real estate. And I bought a 3-family in 2003. That was the first piece of real estate I ever bought. That's not true. I bought a house when I was 19. But on this path of life career, I was in my late 20s, and I bought a 3-family. And that was in 2003. So in the early days of the last real estate run up. And I got hooked on this idea of buying stuff using debt and getting other people to pay it off. And so I went on a pretty rampant run from 2003 to 2008 and wound up getting just under 50 doors that I owned. So I was at 42 of my own apartments. And then I somewhere around 2005, 2006, I started a property management company. Because all these people that were in and around the neighborhoods where I was buying properties were blown away by how much I was getting for rent. They would often ask, like, "Oh, what are you renting your place for?" And at the time, I'd say, "Oh, I'm getting 1,200 for a 2-bedroom." And they go, "1,200? My God, I'm getting 900. How'd you do that?" And I go, "Well, you can hire me and I'll rent your apartments for you, and I can get you 1,200 too, but you'll give me the first month's rent, but I'll cover my costs." And so I started this property management business, which, like a lot of things you start when you're young and stupid and don't know anything, very quickly got bigger than I was capable of handling, had bigger problems than I was skilled enough to understand what I was dealing with, got up to about 240 units under management, with a very small staff, bookkeeper, 2 property managers, and 1 operations person. And learned early in my life that running a business that loses money is a terrible, terrible plan. So it took me a little while to figure that out, but yes, we lost a lot of money and got our asses kicked in that 2008 mortgage meltdown turnaround. I took some bruises, some bumps, broke some arms, but out of that came this new thing, this thing that still feels new to me, even though it's 20 years later. Somewhere along the line, I had gone and gotten a real estate license because it seemed like it made sense if I was going to be buying all these properties that I ought to be able to get the commissions too. I didn't really have a plan to get into real estate as a real estate agent. I thought, boy, if I'm going to be doing this and be, such a big shot, hot shot real estate investor, I ought to be able to self-represent. But But then the world taught me the humility and the humbling lesson that, you're not as smart as you think you are yet, kid. I dusted myself off, and there I was, having not had a full-time corporate career for about 3 years, feeling totally, completely vulnerable and unemployable. Felt like, who the hell is going to hire me? But I had this real estate license. I had this thing that said that I could go out and serve the community, and that if I did it well, within 60 to 90 days, there would be a paycheck. And so initially, real estate was a survivor game for me. It was just about, how do I get myself out of the mess that I've put myself into and find the next person that I can help. The interesting thing about it, as a byproduct of my experience, was it was the first time in my professional career, and I'm 50 now, and I was in my early 30s then. So I had already worked for about, I don't know, 10 or 12 years professionally in some way, shape, or form. Selling real estate was the first time that I actually liked my job, aside from being a lifeguard. I loved being a lifeguard. That was the greatest job ever. And if you could have made that a career for me, there's a good chance we would not be here on this podcast. I'd be on some lifeguarding podcast. But aside from that,
I think you wanted to be in Baywatch as a kid.
yeah, well, it was just, there's no question that was the pinnacle of the opportunity. But,
yeah,
I loved, and I guess there's probably no irony to the fact that they're both about helping people. But I really, truly enjoyed meeting people, helping them figure out, at that point in my life, I had a lot of real estate experience. Even though I was newer to being in the real estate transaction space, I had bought and sold a whole lot of property myself. I'd represented a lot of investor owners. I'd done so much renovation work because, as a property manager, we had to turn over apartments, we had to fix stuff. So I had gone on a crash course on what it takes to own property and what it takes to buy property. And what was happening is family members and friends would come to me and say, "Hey, Matt, you seem to have a good idea of what's going on in this real estate thing. Do you know a realtor?" Because I wasn't telling people that I was a realtor. That was not how I led. When somebody said, "What do you do, Matt?" I didn't say I was a real estate agent. I would often say, "Oh, I'm in real estate. I own a real estate investment company." Because to be very honest, and there are realtors listening to this who are going to relate to it, I kind of was I had a hard time with the fact that I had been this corporate suit and tie boardroom presentation, PowerPoint presentation guy that got on airplanes and flew around the country and, had a fancy watch. I had a hard time with the reality that I was a realtor. It felt like my ego was very much in the way. And there was some moment where I just flushed all that and said, screw this. This is working for me. And I'm enjoying it. I ought to just embrace this. I ought to just decide, let me just do this. And that was probably 2009-ish, 2008, 2009. So I was selling homes prior to that, but it wasn't I hadn't made a decision that this was going to be my full-time thing. And so right around then, 2008, 2009, I decided, okay, you're not going to law school. You're not going to get an MBA, which those were the sort of that would have been the traditional path that I would have gone down. You're just going to do this for now and you'll figure it out. And at that time, my kids had just been born. So they were two very young children under 3 years old. And it just worked. I went and I took 13 listings in the first month that I decided I was going to be a real estate agent. Which, by the way, again, I had had a license for a couple of years.
That's still impressive.
Yeah, well, people were like, "What are you doing?" Everybody thought that I somehow tapped into some magic lead source, and I was like, "Nope." I just decided that instead of wasting my time on things that don't matter, that don't make me money, I'm going to put all my energy into this and see what happens. And yeah, I took 13 listings the first month. I took 11 listings the second month. I just started crushing the listing game. Now, granted, for those agents that are out there like, "Oh my God," listings were actually easy back then. It was a market where no one wanted a listing. Listings were today's buyers. Listings didn't sell. It was still the model in the industry was still very much go get inventory because that's what makes the phone ring. So I understood that was the first domino, but listings were problems. Like that's what listings were. Listings represented complicated problems. Most of those listings, maybe not most, but at least half were short sales, were people that couldn't afford to pay off their balance and were in some sort of financial jeopardy. But it was awesome for me. I got really good at that. I got really, really good at problem solving. I got really, really good at helping people navigate complex like life decisions and situations that for me, that's fundamentally what a real estate agent does. You're a professional problem solver. You help people get from where they are to where they want to be.
Yeah, I think that's what most people don't realize. It's especially newer agents. They don't realize that their main role is going to be problem solving.
It's the only job. The rest of it is the thing is like it's like anything. Like the rest of the job is a commodity. Anybody can do it. Like don't kid yourself. The way you fill out an MLS form is not what makes you good at your job. The way you use Canva is not what makes you good at your job. How well you design a business card or a website or how well you host an open house is not what makes you good at your job, because there's 1.9 million real estate agents in the country and they're all doing exactly the same shit. So there's nothing unique and interesting about that. What makes you awesome is your ability to understand where a customer is and help them get from where they are to where they want to be. And sometimes they don't even know where they want to be. And so the more adept you are at really understanding humans, what makes them tick, why they're doing what they're doing, and then helping them discover a path, the better you are. By the way, sometimes that path means they're not going to sell their home, and that's totally okay. That's the job. So again, like I got very clear when I decided that I was going to make this commitment that number one, the customer was always going to be, it was always going to be about them. It was never going to be about me. And it worked. The other thing was it really worked for me personally because the property management business sucks. I didn't realize it while I was in it, how much I hated it. But I was suffering through it because, again, you get some people that tell you, like, this is what you're supposed to do to go get rich and make money. And so I was doing it. But, you know, I'm not inherently a person that's money motivated. Like, I'm not. I'm ambitious and I'm driven, but it's not because of the money. And so that business is it's such a business of nickels and dimes and pennies and squeezing everybody on every end. And when you're in property management, you're in between this relationship that it doesn't have to be, but it is inherently divisive. You know, you're in between an owner that's trying to squeeze every nickel out of a deal, and you're in between a tenant that always feels like they're not getting the best deal. And so I'm just not really well wired for that. I'm not trying, I don't work well around the idea of like, oh, the victory for me isn't somebody else losing. I live much better in a world where everybody wins. And in real estate transactions, most of the time at the closing, everybody's happy. Most of the time. Most of the time, if you can get them there, most people are like, okay, we did it. Like, we did this thing. Like, it's not, there's a lot more win-win in real estate transactions than there is in property management.
Even when shit hits the fan and it's the worst
Totally.
deal ever. At the end of the day, it's a win-win, right?
That's right.
I got the same ideology. That's why I went into real estate law instead of personal injury or any other area of law, because at the end of the day, it's a win-win. And I say I practice happy law. No one's really angry to see me, just like you. They're always mad to see the real estate agent or the attorney, right? And they're even happier when I'm handing them a check for a couple $100,000, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That helps things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna shift gears, and you talked all about exactly what my belief is, that we're problem solvers. So let's walk through some of those problems so somebody can learn from one of those experiences.
Sure.
So let's think about one of your messy closings that you had. You want to talk about a buyer or a seller?
I mean, there's at this point in my career, I've been a party to almost 3,800 transactions. So
Yeah.
the list of snafus and challenges is quite long.
So pick out your favorite.
Oh, that's such an interesting, you prepped me for this, right? And it's such an interesting question because there's nothing ever catastrophic, right? Like you can solve every problem.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of my favorite sort of war stories. One of the things that I think, like, this is one that I wear like a badge of honor. And I think real estate agents would really appreciate this too. One of my sort of early mantras was there's no such thing as an unsellable property. And, I remember early in my career, very early in my career, being in a real estate meeting, and I had just come from a listing appointment, and I went up to like one of the old guards. We'll call her Betty. She wasn't named Betty, but and she'd been around for a long time, and she asked, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "I just came from this listing appointment. Great house. It's this." I was raving about it, and she's like, "Oh, what street is it on?" I said, "Oh, it's on this street." And she was like, she kind of scoffed, and she was like, "Oh." And I was like, "Oh, what? What do I not know?" And she's like, "Is it a raised ranch?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, oh, they're terrible. Like, she just had like massive judgment and opinion. And I was like, wow, like what a weird way to approach this business. Like, to think that it has anything to do with the property, because it has nothing to do with the property. It's got everything to do with the person, right? So, all that is to say that my philosophy was there's no such thing as an unsellable property, because there's a buyer for everything. So one of my early victories in the industry came, I would say it was probably 2009, 2010. And I was working with a client on listing their property. And the client called me and said, "Hey, one thing that we should consider is what's going on with my neighbor." And I was like, "Tell me more." She said, "Well, my neighbor's property has been vacant for at least 10 years and it's abandoned." And I was like, "Abandoned? Like, what do you mean?" She's like animals running in and out of the house. Like, it's abandoned. And we don't, nobody knows what happened to the owners. So she's like, "But you should probably try to figure it out, because it's going to be harder to sell our house if that house is on the market." So I started just doing the heavy lifting. I looked at the property records. I found that there'd been a number of quit claims on the property. And then I did a preliminary search on the names that were tied to it. And I found that there was a Department of Consumer Protection lien on the property in excess of $600,000. Now, this was a property that was in its best possible condition, not worth more than $200,000, and it had been abandoned for 10 years. Okay. So the Department of Consumer Protection had a $600,000 lien on the property. The property was in disrepair, doesn't even begin to describe it. So one day I went over there and I just started poking around, and I found that the main support column on the house had collapsed. It had rotted through. And so this was not only, this was effectively as tear down as a tear down can get. But it's what most people would call an unsellable property. You've got a $600,000 lien from the most bureaucratic, sort of most difficult, most challenging institution to navigate, which is DCP, which means you're going to have to find the attorney. By the way, the lawsuit that put the lien on it was 12 years old. So you got to find the people that were, what a mess. I mean, and you're smiling because you're an attorney, so you already understand what I had to navigate.
Yep.
But I was like, you know what? If ever there's a challenge that I'm up for, let me go see if I can figure this one out. So I start unpacking the puzzle. I find the owner of the property had actually been the son of the owners that had the lawsuit pressed. What they did is they quitclaimed the deed out of their name into his name, thinking that somehow that would miraculously relieve them of the lien, right? That that he would no longer have to fulfill on it. And this guy hadn't been in Connecticut in 10 years. He had moved, left the state, and was living in California. So I track him down and I go, "Hey," now at this point, he was 19 when they quitclaimed it. So he was 29 years old and had been living with this albatross. Like, so I call him and I'm like, "Hey man, do you know what's going on with this property?" And he's like, "It's the bane of my existence. It's the worst thing that ever happened to me. I can't get a mortgage. I can't, I'm on this property. There's this lien on it. My credit is terrible. Like, I can't survive." And I said, "Well, how would you feel about me helping you get rid of it?" And he was like, "Can you do that?" And I said, "I'm going to try. But I'm going to charge you for it." Right. So what most agents will do is they look at deals like that and they go, well, we charge real estate commission. In this scenario, what I did is I structured my arrangement with him to be basically fee for service and a commission upon sale. And he agreed. And basically I said, it's going to be fee for service payable at closing if I successfully close, and a percentage of the real estate sale. So by getting creative with the way I was able to structure my fee for service, I went and I was able to find an attorney who would partner with me to help me get the liens cleared, also who would get paid. And again, we weren't enriching ourselves. We were just doing the work at a fair price. We got the liens removed. We got the house on the market. We listed it for $99,000 and we sold it for $150 because we had 17 offers on this tear down property. All that is to say that the nightmare was it took us 8 months, right, to get through the deal to sell a $150,000 property, but I was well compensated for the work. We got it sold, and I tell people this because there's too many agents out there in the market that think that this business is about the perfect property or the perfect Instagram reel. And the truth is that if you're good at I love those deals. Bring me your broken deals. Like I can fix them. Like give me your properties that no one else wants, and I know there's always a way. I love transactions like that. And those are like the ones where there's pieces of land that people say, oh, it's unbuildable. You can't build on it. And it's like, yeah, of course you can. You can do stuff with it. It's just, there's a series of steps that have to be gone through in order to get to that. So that's one of my favorites. One of my favorite war stories is that we got that over the finish line.
I guess the best part is you forget solving the problem, the issue. You solved this guy's life problem.
Totally.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Told you this was the bane of his existence, and you were able to help him out. Just think about how much better his life is in
Totally.
that effect, right? So,
and by the way, like my very first, I love telling, this is another one that's just sort of a fun one for people to hear, especially at this point in their career. My very first short sale was actually in 2006. And so I had just gotten my license, and again, I wasn't full-time selling real estate, but I got referred this woman who worked with the attorney that I worked with that was was like, hey, I have to sell my property. And I was like, okay, cool. I have a license. I can list it and I can sell it. So sure enough, we do. I'd never heard of a short sale before. It had never occurred to me that checking liens and values owed, because number one, I was so new. Number two, nobody was upside down. Like that was not a thing that happened. Like property values weren't upside down in 2006, unless you'd gone and, you'd used all those 0%, low interest rate, ARM adjustable mortgages with back end pile-ons. So anyway, this woman, I listed her property. We listed it at like maybe 235,000, again, this is 2006, right? We get an offer and it's pretty close to the asking price. It's like 220, I sit with the client. She says, yeah, okay, I guess I could accept that. So we accept the offer. We start going through the process of the home inspection and all that. And one day she calls me up and she's like, hey, I just have a quick question. So like I owe like 270. What happens to the amount that I owe? And I was like, wait, what do you mean you owe 270? And she's like, well, I have a first, second, and third mortgage on the property. And I was like, you have 3 mortgages on the property? And she said, yeah. It just didn't occur to me like that when we sold, like I just figured I wouldn't have to pay. And I'm like, I have no idea what happens. And again, nobody knew what short sales were. In fact, so much so that I said to her, send me all your mortgage statements and I'm going to figure this out. I don't know what any of this means, but let me figure it out. And it was GMAC Mortgage. I called the 800 number and I got a customer service person on the phone. Now, people that have ever worked on short sales will find this story to be utterly and completely unbelievable. They'll tell me I'm lying. I swear I'm not lying. This is exactly how it went. I call the 800 number. I say to the person, I'm a real estate agent and I have a problem. The problem is my client owes more on the property than they can sell it for. The woman says, oh, that's called loss mitigation. And I go, ooh, new term. Never heard that before. I write it down, loss mitigation. She goes, "You need to speak to Kelly." And I go, "Kelly? Okay." So she transfers me to Kelly. Kelly was the only loss mitigation person at GMAC Mortgage. This was 2006. Nobody was upside down on property. They had one lady that did all the deals. Like she was so sweet. And she was like, "Okay, honey, we'll take care of you. Let me tell you what you need to do. You got to write a hardship letter. She's going to have to send all, first, you got to send me a letter that says that you're allowed to talk to me, right? What's the name of that letter? We used to have to send permission. Letter of authorization, right. So yeah, first you got to send me a letter. And I'm like, "Oh, what does it say?" She's like, "I'll send you one. You can just have her sign." So sure, client signs it. Then I call her. Now I've got the letter of authorization. And now we start going through the process of solving a short sale. Honestly, people thought they thought I was Harry Potter. They thought I'd discovered like wizardry because I was able to do this. And so now I swear it was because it was 2006 and it was so early in the turn that these departments, they didn't have these, they weren't bombarded and buried in these deals like they were 2 and 3 years later. And so I kind of like put all the paperwork together, sent the package over. Anytime Kelly had a question, she called me. Like we just worked the deal. And like within 30 days, we had an approval and my client was able to sell her home. That is one of the things that I point to on the regular as what really got me started with the capacity to understand leverage in the real estate business. Because once that happened, other realtors in my office and even at other companies at the time at Prudential, at Coldwell Banker, had because I got out and about and got to know people, they knew I knew how to do it. And so as the market started to shift to short sales, agents that didn't know how to do it would call me up and say, "Would you do the short sale part for me? I'll take the listing, you do the short sale, and we'll split the commission." And I was like, "Sure." So why I actually started the team was I needed admin help because I had, at any point in time, I had maybe 8 or 10 of these short sales that I was processing on behalf of other agents. And I was getting paid the 1 to 1.5% loss mitigation fee on the deal. Again, difficult business. I didn't love doing those, but it created a lot of great relationships. And certainly when I was the guy that could solve those complicated problems in the market, you start getting a reputation. Somebody gets out, as they call somebody, they say, "Hey, Matt helped me get out of mine. You should call him and he should help you." So I actually dabbled in the idea of building like one of those loss mitigation short sale companies. Started doing it in a couple of states. Because of the lesson I had learned in property management, both around you can't run a business that doesn't make money, and also you ought to pursue jobs that make you happy. I chose to not pursue that on a larger scale.
I think I take that as the key lesson here is you got to be happy with what you do.
You got to wake up. If you're gonna be in any sort of entrepreneurial career, if you don't wake up a little bit excited about what you have on your calendar in the day, you're destined for trouble. Because entrepreneurs are the only people that choose to work 80 to 100 hours a week just so they don't have to work 40. Like it's like we're like afflicted people. Like there's a mental issue here. Like you don't have to do this. But we choose that because we want to have, I don't know what the psychology of it is. You want to have, control, skin in the game. You want to be participating in the overall outcome. And so like once I started working for myself, I knew I'd never go back to not, but definitely you have to have some joy in the thing that you do. There's got to be some part of it that you're excited about.
I think it's the problem is you don't feel like you're working. Right?
Well,
if I work 80 hours a week, I don't feel it because I enjoy what I do. Right? I'm sure you're the same way. I think that's the big difference. Although it's really funny because I'm reading the book The E-Myth. I don't know if you've ever read that.
Yeah, a long time ago I read it.
And I love it because we quit our 40-hour per week jobs because we want more freedom, but then we work more hours.
That's right.
Fascinating.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want more freedom and flexibility, so you go and start your own company where you become chief cook and bottle washer, bookkeeper, hiring manager, legal. Yeah, you take on every job, right? Yeah. And by the way, you take on a bunch of you also get the added benefit of absolutely no certainty or security in your income, right? So
which is both good and bad, right? Because it's sometimes you get that perk of you get some really really good years and some you get some lighter years.
yeah, you get the upside, but you also get the downside. Yeah, yeah.
You know, a lot of what we run into with our clients is we see that there's these small little issues that turn into big problems because they don't get addressed earlier, which kind of seems like the trend you've dealt with, right? Just these few deals that we talked about.
You know, at this point, we have between Massachusetts, New York, and Connecticut, we have about 50 agents on the Miale team, and you know, the core philosophy being there's no such thing as an unsellable property, and there's no such thing as an unsolvable problem, right? We believe it's our mission to empower people, right? So we set out every day and we say we empower people. That's what we do, and through the process of empowering the people, we help them solve whatever problem is in front of them. I think a lot of real estate agents put too much emphasis on the problems of the humans. Like you know, I'm on all the message boards, you know, all the Facebook groups, and you'll see that I don't participate almost ever because the overriding theme is very negative, and I think that's like I can't believe that people wake up every day and choose to be in real estate and then choose to complain about it. I think you're insane. Like I think that if you are in the real estate industry and you're waking up and you're bitching about it, like just go do something else. Like this isn't nobody said or promised that it would be easy. But you are in service to humans, and therefore you have a like an obligation to wake up every day and be your best self to go serve them. If you can't, then don't go to work today. But there's a lot of bitching and a lot of complaining, and all too often, what I see are people bitching and complaining about customers, and I have insanely low tolerance for that. And by the way, you know, as I mentioned, right, I'm closing in on 3,800 transactions, and you'll find lots of people that said, "Oh, I didn't like working with Matt." Like over a course, you'll find people that wouldn't say it was the best experience of their life. That's going to happen. It's usually not their fault, right? Like it would be easy for me to say it was, but a lot of the time there's validity to it, you know, and I'm okay owning that and saying like, damn, like I should have done better. But what I often see is real estate agents who are choosing to make the client wrong, rather than taking responsibility for how the client experience is going. Let me give you a real-time example. In this market today, it's real hard for buyers. We all know that. It's real hard for buyers. Inventory is lower than it's ever been, which means that the listings that do come on the market are more competitive than they've ever been, which means that buyers have to be really tuned in to what they need to do, and agents have to be sharp as a tack to help their clients navigate very difficult decisions with a very limited window of time to make those decisions. And those choices are hard. Should I waive a home inspection? I mean, under any circumstance, that is a very difficult decision to make. No scenario is that a decision that should be taken lightly. Even though
you got to make it in 30 seconds because
you have
lose your deal otherwise.
Yeah, you have 6 hours to decide. Like, you know, what level of risk are you comfortable with? Like, and so all too often what I see is real estate agents turning that into my client just won't accept reality. And it's like, that's not necessarily true. Perhaps you won't accept their reality, which is that they're not comfortable with the decision that they need to make. And perhaps the real story is this might not be the right market for them. And by the way, that's on you if you're still dragging them along and not offering them the exit ramp gracefully. The reason that agents don't do that is because the vast majority of agents, and when I say vast majority, that's not hyperbole, 85% of real estate agents are out of the industry within 3 years after getting their license. and north of 70% sell less than one home a year. What that tells you is that the vast majority of people in this business are not professionals. They're amateurs and they're hobbyists. And so amateurs and hobbyists get frustrated because their client doesn't do what they need them to do to make it easy for them. That's actually not the job. The job is to take the friction from the client. The job is to take the problem from the client and help them to make the best decision that they can, which includes sometimes now is not the right time. Nobody's really ever happy with those choices, but those are choices that have to be presented. And so we train our agents at a really high level on how to have those dialogues. And when I say that, I'm not like, we train on that. We train on how do you help somebody self-discover whether this is the right market for them? How do you help somebody ask the right questions of themselves, of their family members, as to whether or not this is the right market for them to make these big financial decisions? Are they capable of it from a risk mitigation standpoint, or is it going to be overwhelming for them? Are they going to wake up in 6 months and feel regret? Like, we try to work people through those choices because that's the real job.
No, you don't want to be in a situation where 6 months later they call on you and they're pissed off at you because you talked them into a decision that really they should not have gone down that path.
Totally.
I appreciate that because I don't think enough people do that. And not just in real estate in general, right? We should be taking people down the path of maybe this doesn't make sense for you.
Yeah, well, it's just a matter of a question, right? You can always solve every problem with a really good question. And, a really good question could be, if 6 months from now you're still where you are and not in a home, what would that do for you? What would that mean? And if the answer is we'd actually be fine, then you say, okay, well then let's turn down the temperature a little bit and maybe let's revisit this in a bit. I don't believe in creating false urgency. That's another thing. Like those people that do know me, that listen to your podcast, know that I spend a lot of time looking at data in the marketplace. I post a lot about it. If you don't follow me, check it out. I put good data up there. It's accurate. It's vetted. The reason that I do that is that I believe that a lot of people in our market and our industry, including mortgage people, create false urgency. And false urgency is the worst possible thing for somebody to make a good decision. Number one, because they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out that it's false and it's manufactured, and you're going to lose 100% of the trust and credibility that they have in you because you tried to rush them into something that they weren't ready for. So data is always the most defensible position, right? That's another one of the Miale Team mantras, is the truth is always the most defensible position. So it's a no white lies. We don't manufacture stories. We tell the truth all the time. When it's an opinion, we ask a question. If it's about what's right for me, it's like, well, what do you think is right for you? Like that's what we train on. And that's why we're phenomenal advocates for customers in the market, because we're just helping people self-discover what's important to them and then giving them the truth. So I don't know if this market's good for me, Matt. How would I know? Well, here's what I can tell you, that, we have 14 active listings in the market right now, based on the criteria that you're looking for. Those 14 active listings have all been on the market for less than 10 days and are likely to be sold in the next 10 days. Inventory is on a decline. Buyer demand is continuing to push the market up. Prices in a year will likely be higher than they are now. Interest rates show no signs of improving. And we may actually have less choices a year from now than we do today. That said, if these conditions are such that this isn't the right market for you, then you just need to know, like, they're not likely to change. So what do you do with that?
I don't know. I don't feel good about that. The way you put it, I feel comfortable and can trust your decision, because it's now not about the false urgency. It's not about what you're pushing me. You're giving me the information, and really you're leading me to make my own decision.
Yeah, that's the job, man. That is literally the job. And then one of the other things is, like, you hear agents will say, like, and again, this is the stuff that drives me crazy. I hate hearing it. And we have to, when agents come to the team and we have to train them on this sort of customer-centric experience, You'll hear an agent say like, well, I told my clients if they didn't do it, that they were going to lose the house. And I go, who cares? Like, there's always another house. It's just a matter of when, right? So if a customer will say like, well, Matt, we really want this, but we don't want to lose it. And I go, what do you care if you lose it? There will be another one. The thing is I just don't know when. Like, so like it's not really losing. It's just understand that the cadence of listings and opportunities, we don't know. It could be 5 next month. It could be 1. It could be 0 for the next 5 months. I just don't know. So the decision you have to make is, are you okay with the risk of not knowing? That's the choice. The choice is you have certainty versus uncertainty, which, by the way, is really what every decision boils down to. What is your level of comfort with what you're certain
about? I appreciate that perspective, because I don't think I've ever gotten the insight on that from your team, because I haven't interacted with them enough. But I really love that. That's extremely valuable, because it's a very different approach. And I like you said earlier that it's a difference between professional and
amateurs and hobbyists. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things, like you started out and you said, oh, Matt, you're well known. One of the weirdest experiences, like I'll just put this out there and then we can probably wrap up. But like,
yeah,
one of the weirdest experiences about having a business that's big and has your name on it is how many people presume to know what you're about or who you are without ever having asked a single question or ever gotten to know you. It's one of the most jarring things that happens. Like when it'll happen a lot. It's a lot more industry wide than it is outside the industry, where, people will meet me and be like, wow, you're so much nicer than I thought. And I'm always like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't even understand. Like, how did you think I was not nice? Like, what, I mean, I tell agents this all the time too, is like, a lot of times real estate, this is again, the messaging for realtors in our market. Like, remember that successful people are generally pretty likable. Like, the most successful agent that you see in your town that you're making up a story about is probably a really cool person. That's how they got good at what they do. Like, so like, remember, like, it's not the competition is not about personality. It's about activity. The reason those people are more successful is because they're doing more. It's actually got nothing to do with them being sharks or badasses or they're just doing more. They're just talking to more people, having more meaningful conversations, solving more problems in more meaningful ways for more people. And that's why they're doing more business. This is why I love this job so much, because I wake up every day and I realize that in 90 days, I will have a series of new relationships, and any real estate agent can. That every 90 days, you go create a series of brand new relationships with people that you can go serve and solve problems for, who maybe become customers for life, may become friends. And that is so freaking cool. Like, it's like, what other job in the world offers you that opportunity for every 90 days to kind of reinvent yourself? So, I wake up excited every day to go out and meet new people, engage the world, and go find the opportunities that are out there, because fundamentally, it's not really a complicated job. It's not. The problems are complicated, but the job itself is very simple.
No, you've done 3,800 transactions around that. They're pretty much the same problems for the most part.
Pretty much.
Right. And you just gotta be creative sometimes on how to solve them. It may be the same problem, not the same solution always.
Right.
You gotta be creative. And it's exactly that. We're in the business to solve problems, right?
That's right.
The same thing with us, right? We solve problems on a daily basis. You solve problems. We solve different problems in different ways, but we're solving problems for our clients.
That's right.
Which is key.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I'm gonna before I end it, I agree with you on that, right? People may think that somebody at the top's an asshole, but they got somewhere. If you look at any business, yeah, you may think the guy is an asshole, but realistically, they can't be an asshole if they got that far.
It's especially in the service industry. Like,
right.
That's sort of the point that I make, is like, the most successful real estate agents, remember, they are on trial every day interviewing for jobs. Every single day you start out unemployed as a realtor. And so if you're starting out unemployed every single day, that means that you're engaging new people every day. And at a minimum, those people say, you know what, you're a good guy. I'm going to hire you.
Right. They've got to trust you.
Yeah,
I mean, what is it? Know, like, and trust. That's the three
that's
things
right.
they got to know.
That's
Right? If
exactly
you're
right.
an asshole, they may know you. They're not going to like you, and they're not going to trust you.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Well, I invite anybody anytime. I tell people all the time I'm the easiest guy to find in the world. If you put my name in Google, my cell phone number comes up. So, anybody anytime that wants to ever chat or talk about it, I love talking real estate with anybody. Agents, whether you're new, veteran, navigating something. I put myself out there, as a servant to the community and a servant to the client. So, love the conversations and always apply. And people do reach out. It's 100% true. People will reach out to me, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that didn't get a response, because I pride myself on being available and accessible to people to help.
I appreciate that. I normally end my call or end our podcast with, why don't you share your contacts so we would find you. But you know what? The best answer is Google Matt. You'll find him online and you get his number easily.
You can find us, these days really promoting most of our social media engagement. At Matt Miale Team is my personal Instagram profile, where we put most of the team content. We put clips from all the market stats. If you're interested in that, we put clips from our leadership and growth calls. So, if you're just interested to see kind of how we operate, that's like a window into what it's like on the Miale team. Also, mattmiale.com is a personal website that I've got where I do, training and coaching. Feel free to check that out anytime. There's method, you can click a bunch of buttons there and get a hold of me too. So.
Perfect. Well, Matt, thank you for spending some time with me this morning. I really do appreciate it. And you're a really nice guy. I didn't know that before. No, we've interacted on a number of occasions. It's always been a great experience. So.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And, anything I can ever do, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you.